into a small two-bedroom apartment in the west side of San Jose on Concord Avenue. Compared to the garage, it was a Victorian castle. The apartment was carpeted, each room had a window, we had running water, a flushing toilet, and more than 2 appliances could be plugged in at a time without short-circuiting the entire place. Vanessa and I shared a room, and Mommy surprised us with matching twin beds from the flea market. We were in heaven. For the first time since Papi's passing, we started feeling like this could be home. This could really be home. We began to find community at Concord Avenue. Karen and her daughter Tiffany were our most immediate neighbors in apartment 3. Tiffany was a year my senior. She was a brawny girl with porcelain skin covered by auburn freckles like spackled chocolate. Most everything that came out of Tiffany's mouth was a demand. Get me that chair, or we're playing Aladdin right now. Aladdin was Tiffany's favorite game. She loved to play Jafar, the evil genie, and order Vanessa and me around her house with a whip she found in her mother's closet. Karen, Tiffany's mother, was a hefty woman who worked an IT job, wore frizzy red hair, and enjoyed life's small pleasures, like playing Tetris in the living room wearing a t-shirt, and only a t-shirt. Upon entering Tiffany's house, we'd find Karen braless and cross-legged in her big white t-shirt, orange fire bush ablaze between her legs. When she got up for a snack, her pale butt cheeks peered out like a pair of full moons covered with craters made by asteroids of leftover crumbs. Toast, Pop-Tarts, chips. The summer days at Concord Avenue were the best. The sun was hot and dry, and all the neighborhood kids would come out to play, splashing each other with running water from the broken fire hydrant. We romped around, in and out of garages, hiding and seeking, ringing on doorbells and wondering who would be caught next. The streets were filled with frisky excitement, the noontime sun fresh and tanning our little brown faces, our clear jelly flip-flops leaving red blisters on our feet. But Concord Avenue had a dark side, its surrounding streets. As soon as the sun went down, West San Jose was no place to walk alone. The sight of the moon arose los pandilleros like famished vampires. This wasn't metaphorical, they wanted blood. Different streets in the same 3-mile radius were claimed by different gangs, the Sureños, the Norteños, and the Bloods. On certain nights, the wind grew cold and whisper spreads that the Sureños were taking heads or the Bloods were in search of virgins. Sirens were a natural part of the soundtrack of the neighborhood, and the popping bangs of gunshots became easy to ignore after the first year. Luther Burbank, our new school, turned out to be a breeding ground for the children of gang members, children who dressed in clothes 5 times their size, dickies carefully pressed and starched, belts with letters and numbers on them that signified belonging, shirts either red, blue, or black. Luther Burbank had its own uniform. It also had its own mother tongue. The children of this land spoke in riddled hand motions, a sign language of crooked fingers and disturbing symbols whose mere appearance felt violent. Signs were not made, they were thrown like staccato punches, like firing invisible weapons releasing multiple silent triggers. The school was small and poor. Each class was sequestered into its own trailer. Teachers came and went each year, sometimes each quarter. Familiar adult faces were few. Many looked young and intimidated. Naive souls that thought they could take on 7th graders from the bad part of town and show them a better way of life found themselves in an ocean of handmade tattoos, marijuana smoke, brass-knuckled knives, and vodka slipped into breakfast orange juice. Teachers never lasted there. My 8th grade class had 13 girls, including myself. Only 3 of us didn't have tattoos across our budding breasts, bold Roman numerals XIV, XIII, or multiple names of lovers across necks and backs, surrounded by deliberate black and blues, some bruises, some hickeys, all loudly claiming ownership. But each one of us adhered to the dress code, the dark colors, the hair-sprayed bangs over black penciled eyebrows, our little mouths outlined brown like angry clowns. We responded to pseudonyms like Loca and Shy Girl. I can't remember how many gang initiation fights I saw on the blacktop behind the 8th grade trailers. Boys shaking hands with fists and pointed fingers. The victim indicated he was ready, and with only a nod, the group of pandilleros surrounded him and descended like vultures encircling their prey, like a snake beginning to wrap itself around the body of a mouse. Once the first punch was laid, hits came down like hail, like a plague of raining rocks sent down by an Old Testament God, punishing relentlessly. Soon, the boy was down, his brow and cheek bleeding, curled into a fetal position protecting vital organs. Once on the ground, the kicks ensued, blows to his legs, his head, his back, steel-toed shoes against ribs and cracks and inadvertent moans from a boy trying to play a man, the leader counting down the seconds left to his release. 15, 14. The second passed like lazy hours, like days. When is it ending? I thought every time. The girls watched, half of us appalled, half of us unfazed, even rooting, standing there with a cigarette hanging from our lips. When it finally ended, when the leader called out 0, everything stopped. The moment stood still. You're done, the leader would say, and the beaten boy on the blacktop would begin to shift, revealing a swollen face, bits of gravel in his wounds, his lip and teeth concealed by blood, his white t-shirt heavily stained. You did it. Welcome to the family, Bato. I have 3 short poems from a collection called The Growing. And the first one is the title poem, The Growing. I can't seem to stop growing inward. The expansion mulls and overtakes me like moss on a rock, a smooth, organic process, dewy and uneven. I'm innocent, lumpy as dough. I'm hard to a fist clutching until it's white everywhere, until it compresses so tightly into its root it just might collapse. This is how I am, the body yin of summer, spread and elegant as midnight, the yang of the second to last snowfall, the one you pray for to just end, finally end. I am self-immersed, I am a creature. I am devolving, I am taxed, I keep unraveling in excess until the instant I choose to be, to hold myself in deep, solitary crevice, satiated, still, to rest in the ephemeral, the ellipses between us. This poem is called Migration Patterns of Blue Jays. I sit down to write, black coffee and all, but never actually write. I end up researching everything under the sun. The internet is a brain on speed, knitting relevance between poetry workshops at my local library and migration patterns of blue jays. I learned they flock together, a single unit along the warm current of the Atlantic. Young jays are more likely to migrate than adults. Much of their migration still remains a mystery. Then I found a poem about a man who was a widow. His wife died of cancer. They fell in love at the oncologist, honeymooned in Jersey City. She was 29, a young jay. At 28, I had both a honeymoon at Half Moon Bay behind me, the foggy mist of the Pacific North Coast cold, and a fresh divorce under my belt. For years, I wished desperately to explain it away, as something else entirely, to be able to say, God took him, rather than he left. Though, either way, I still would not know of him to this day. I guess heaven and California are equidistant from Central Park, where we became one. His migration remains a mystery. And my last piece is called The Muse Requests a Poem. So I stir memories for lines like stew, potatoes, carrots, father, mother, car crash, death. I have a tiny sister left. I have your call welling up, that impatient gasoline tongue. It yells from the mouth of birds to stranger stares, lonely winter walks, the amalgam of it all. You beckon, sometimes ridicule and say, get up, the dawning of the day is not yet over. You're right, I am first daughter. You, blatant and absurd, immediacy thorning like a swallowed nest, a home inside my chest. You teach, I, perpetual student, salute sons, learn to move my limbs with breath, to write like I inhale, necessary as bread, staving off nostalgia, victimhood, and frail divinity with a pen. You ask me to dive past the waves, the curious currents of the veil, to labor, to sweat, to play, mother and midwife at once, and finally to give in, exhale, and birth myself again. Thank you.